Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto lost his memories and met Morgiana, Kairi, Xion, Aqua and Rory? Episode 2. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, as fragments of Naruto's forgotten past begin returning, he realizes that someone erased his memories for a reason, and the truth could threaten multiple worlds. Naruto couldn't exactly place his finger on it, but something seemed off with his supposed sensei as of late. For the past few weeks, the masked Jonin had constantly paired Sakura up with the blonde for random things that at first didn't seem like nothing. Having Sakura merely help the boy with various chakra exercises, or maybe a small task during one of their many D-rank missions within the village. But the constant consistency of it made the blonde Jinchuriki question the silver-haired man's motives. Sakura had seemed to notice this as well, as she cast her blonde teammate a confused look whenever Kakashi had instructed her to aid Naruto. Not that she minded being with her blonde teammate that she had forged an actual friendship with, she just found it odd that her sensei was requiring her to always be around him for any little thing. Alright, that's it for today my cute little genin. The masked Jonin called out as he stood up from where he was sitting the entire time while the three were wrapping up their latest D-rank mission. Be sure to be here bright and early tomorrow morning. Hey Kakashi-sensei. The blonde called out, catching the Jonin's attention, though he blanched on the inside to have to call the man by that just to keep up his appearance. Do I have any extra training I can do? Kakashi merely frowned before replying. I'm afraid not right now, maybe later. In truth, he didn't want to train the boy any more than what was required or unless the Hokage deemed it necessary for more training. Always using the promise of new jutsus and techniques as a carrot on a stick to string the weapon along. As it was, he was barely skilled enough to handle the upcoming exams. Of course there was no chance of the blonde Jinchuriki being promoted, he was merely there to support the Uchiha. All the boy had to do was survive the tests. Ah, okay Kakashi-sensei. The blonde whined while kicking some dirt. Guess I'll just go get some ramen. See ya tomorrow. Kurama, please kill me. He mentally cried anime tears at having to put on this act. Just overload my coils with your chakra and burn me alive from the inside. The fox retorted, rolling its eyes at the young teen's antics. Won't be long before we can escape this cesspool and get you back where you belong. Hey Naruto, wait up. A voice called from behind him. Turning he saw his pink-haired teammate running to catch up with him. What's up, Sakura-chan? The blonde asked, tilting his head to the side slightly. Don't. What's up, me, baka? The pinkit chastised. You know I always go with you for ramen. Now come on, Ayame-san is probably waiting for us. Chuckling, the blonde Jinchuriki scratched the back of his head before he followed after Sakura, while Kakashi and Sasuke merely looked on. The latter was still not sure of what was going on with his teammates. Wondering what had happened that the annoying fangirl was now chasing after the blonde. Not that he cared, he was glad she was focusing on someone else other than him. Kakashi on the other hand had a smirk hidden under his mask. Everything is going as planned. He thought to himself. Just need to push them a little more and Hokage-sama can initiate the next phase of his plan. All for the good of Konoha. Come on Sasuke, I have some training for your Sharingan. He stated as he led the last Uchiha further into the training field. Sakura and Naruto. Naruto, does Kakashi-sensei seem weird to you lately? The pinkit asked as they approached the ramen stand that had become a natural hangout for the two of them. You mean that it feels like he is purposely putting the two of us together for the past few weeks? The blonde clarified, his tone carrying a weight of seriousness to it. At the same time, he also activated the seal on him to distort his chakra signature to prevent the old man from spying on their conversation. Exactly. She frowned as the two of them took their seats inside the stand next to each other and placed their usual orders. It felt like he was purposely putting us together, but not in a sense to improve teamwork. It felt off to me as well. Naruto nodded in agreement. Almost like it was forced. What? Are you implying that I am bad company? The Pinkett teased. Oh, the worst. The blonde rolled his eyes in sarcasm, earning a giggle from the pink-haired girl. Here you two go. Ayame piped up, placing 2 bowls of ramen in front of the duo. Thanks Ayame-ne-chan. Naruto smiled, earning a blush from the ramen waitress. So how was your day so far? The brunette inquired about her 2 usual customers. More D-rank chores that civilians are too lazy to do themselves. Naruto half complained while he ate, earning a giggle from his teammate, and a chuckle from the ramen waitress. Other than that, more training, though Kakashi-sensei keeps pairing Sakura-chan and myself together lately. Ah, sounds like he's playing matchmaker and trying to get you two together. Ayame teased, causing the Pinkett to deeply blush at the insinuation. However, the young blonde adopted an expression of thought on his face, narrowing his eyes slightly. I think the ramen waitress is onto something, Kit. Kurama commented. Though I doubt the bastard is trying to play matchmaker. He has an ulterior motive. I agree, but what? I am not sure, but I think your friend just became a pawn to be used and discarded once her usefulness has ended. Naruto couldn't help but frown at that. If he knew his renewed friendship with his pink-haired teammate would put her in danger, he would have continued to push her away. Cursing his forgiving nature, he tried to come up with a way to gently tell Sakura that it would be best to distance herself from him. Though, he could come up with nothing that wouldn't reveal his secret, and he wasn't sure where she would stand if he told her that he had been kidnapped and was currently training to run away from Konoha to return home. You okay, Naruto? Sakura inquired as she snapped the blonde out of his musings. Yeah, he quickly replied. Why? You kind of zoned out there, kind of like you were talking to someone only you could hear. She offhandedly commented. Not noticing the boy's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Sorry about that, he replied, sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. The two ate in a comfortable silence for the next few minutes, though to the Pinkett's surprise, the blonde teen had stopped at a measly 2 bowls of ramen. Once he was finished, he laid his money out on the counter to pay for the meal and bid Sakura goodbye, telling her that he was going to go train a little. With a frown on her face, Sakura watched as her blonde teammate disappeared down the street. Not missing some of the glares sent the boys away by the villagers he passed by, causing her to scowl slightly. You like him, don't you? A voice startled the young Pinkett, snapping her out of her thoughts. Turning around, she saw a grinning Ayame. Aye. She fumbled, blushing horribly. Completely caught off guard by the young woman's bluntness. Aha, so you do like him. She exclaimed while pointing a playful accusing finger at the young pink-haired Kunoichi. To hide her embarrassment, Sakura quickly shoveled the remaining ramen into her mouth and fished into her pocket to pay for her meal before the ramen waitress stopped her. Naruto-kun already paid for yours. She smiled, earning another faint blush from the Pinkett at the blonde teen's gesture, and muttered a thanks to the ramen waitress. Just be sure to be there for him. Kami knows that boy needs all the love he can get right now. Nodding her head, Sakura climbed down from her stool and departed the stand. She was half tempted to seek out her blonde teammate and perhaps join him for a training session, but she realized that she didn't know where Naruto trained when he was on his own. All she knew was that he did it away from prying eyes. To ensure Sasuke-tem couldn't copy my training with his pink eye, were the blonde's words. 2 months ago, the Pinkett would have lashed out at the blonde for making such a comment about the great Uchiha, but when he had said it, she had simply giggled. Knowing that she wouldn't be able to find her blonde teammate, she had instead opted to head home and get to bed early. Not knowing what horrors would await her the next day. She was about halfway home when a voice called out to her from her right. Oi, forehead. A platinum blonde girl called out. What do you want, Eno pig? The pinkett retorted. Is that any way to greet your best friend and rival? The blonde girl grinned as she approached Sakura. You haven't been my friend since we were 10. Sakura scowled, with a bit of disappointment in herself for allowing a single boy ruin their once close friendship. As much as she wanted to blame the girl across from her, she knew she was just as guilty. Anyways, Eno continued, ignoring the comment the pinkett made. I heard you've been spending a lot of time with Naruto Baka, even spent your first week back looking for him. What's up? You got the hots for him or something? Why do you care? Sakura inquired with a clipped tone, clenching her fists tightly as she became upset at the blonde girl insulting her blonde teammate. And Naruto is not an idiot. Just wanted to see if it was true. The blonde girl shrugged. And it seems it is, with how defensive you are over him. When Sakura didn't reply, Eno continued. So does this mean you're finally realizing that Sasuke-kun will never choose you over me? The blonde taunted. Is that why you're now chasing after that loser? Whatever. Sakura scoffed as she turned to walk away, only to be stopped once more by her former best friend. You really are chasing after Naruto now, aren't you? The blonde girl stated, more surprised than anything else. Okay. Spill forehead, what happened? Sakura could only mentally groan, as she knew the Mind Walker would not let it drop until she got the information she was after. With a reluctant sigh, the pinkett motioned the blonde to follow her to one of the nearby training grounds, to reduce the chance of others listening in. Alright, spill the beans Sakura, what happened to make you focus on Naruto Baka? Eno all but demanded, ignoring the pinkett's glare once they arrived at their destination. Fine, you know how a month ago we had that mission in Wave Country? Sakura inquired, earning a nod from the blonde. That's when it all changed. Naruto-kun said something that really shook me to my core. Eno could only an eyebrow at the kun suffix the pinkett had unknowingly attached to Naruto's name, but decided to remain silent for the time being, though storing this bit of information away to tease the pink-haired kunoichi later. Well, what did he say? The blonde Mind Walker asked, a bit impatiently. Did he confess his undying love to you or something? No, I wish it was something that simple. Sakura all but whispered, her expression turning solemn. When Kakashi-sensei and I found him after he mastered the tree-walking exercise. He pulled one of his pranks, I yelled at him about how he could have died, and what he told me still haunts me. After a pregnant pause, much to the ire of the blonde, she continued. He said I wouldn't care if he did, and even stated that the village would celebrate his death. And the sad thing is, it's true about the villagers. Sakura finished, wiping a few tears that had formed in her eyes. How do you know if it's true? Eno asked, a little skeptical about the villagers' reaction if the blonde goofball had died. 2 reasons. Sakura sighed, looking down at the ground. When we returned, I followed Naruto-kun to try and talk to him. As I did, I heard the whispers of the villagers and even some of the shinobi, confirming what he said. Many wished he would have died on our mission outside the village, others bragging about horrible things they have done to him in the past when he was younger. Eno could only look on in horror at this revelation. The other reason I know this. The pinkett bit back a sob. I hung out with him for 1 day. All day, the glares, sneers, hateful words. Getting tossed out of stores, overcharged for expired food. And that wasn't the worst of it. They tried to kill me. Not just the villagers, but shinobi as well. They chased me with the intent of killing me. I don't believe it. The blonde stated in denial. Use your mind transfer jutsu on me then, and you will see it as it happened. Sakura challenged. Eno frowned a bit, before moving her fingers into the proper seals for her family's jutsu, rising up to the pinkett's challenge. Instantly, she found herself within her former friend's mind. Immediately she was thrust into the girl's memories of what happened in Wave. Naruto hanging upside down from a tree branch with his trademark grin on his face as he reacted to the frightened and shocked reaction he got from the two from his latest prank. Herself as Sakura yelling at him for being an idiot and how he could have died if he fell. Then the words that felt like a punch to the gut, how she wouldn't care if he died. Kakashi reprimands the blonde, only for Naruto to scoff and claim that no one would care if he died, and that the villagers would celebrate his death. Suddenly, the memory shifted to a bridge. Two bodies had fallen due to the sheer number of adversaries before a short, fat man barked out orders for his men to kill the male shinobi and capture the women to be broken in and then sold off to various brothels. Fear freezing her very soul at the implication. Then she saw a red chakra wrap around Naruto as he let out an enraged roar before the blonde charged forth and began to massacre the thugs before reaching the pathetic fat man, who was now on his knees, begging to be spared. Ino could only gasp as she saw the red chakra wrap around the man and rip him apart. The slaughter finished, the red chakra seeped back into the blonde before he turned and collapsed on the bridge. In another shift, Ino found herself trailing the blonde boy through the village. Watching as the villagers she recognized as being cheerful and kind all glared at the blonde boy, whispering desires that the boy died, and some even bragging about how they had tortured the boy years ago. Their very words made her want to throw up in disgust. Another shift in memories. She now felt the glares and hateful words directed at her as she walked through the village. Attempting to enter a shop, only to be chased out by the shop owner. Stating something about demons not allowed in his store. She wanted to cry. Each store was the same experience, and those that did allow her in would charge her 3 times to normal price. Then, she felt a kunai graze her arm, bringing her attention to the mob that had formed behind her. Turning, she quickly ran away from them, dodging projectiles as much as she could. Then it all went black, and Ino found herself back in her own body. Tears streamed down her face at the memories she had just witnessed. She couldn't believe it, yet it was true. She knew the pink-haired girl couldn't fabricate such things. She had actually experienced these things firsthand. Though the Mindwalker had been completely unaware that inner Sakura had been the one directing her to certain memories. That last part you saw. Sakura stated, catching the blonde's attention. He lives through that every day. I can't believe it. Ino stammered, trying to shake the feeling of what she had just experienced. Rubbing her arm where the kunai had grazed her in the memory. But why would you hang out with him? Because I wanted to experience it for myself. The pinkit answered softly. My mother always told me that you never truly know someone until you walk a day in their shoes. Silence hung between them as Sasuke was forgotten from the blonde Mindwalker's mind. Her thoughts now revolve around her fellow blonde, and the daily trials he faced on a regular basis. However, one single thing stuck out to the blonde Mindwalker. You know, there is one thing I should point out to your forehead. Ino mischievously grinned, making Sakura a little bit nervous. This entire time, you've been referring to Naruto as Naruto-kun. At this, the pinkit stiffened as a heavy blush spread across her face. Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki groaned as he did his stretches, having arrived at his desired training ground that had become a home away from home. Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death. He had chosen this particular training ground for his private training due to the fact that many shinobi, even of Jonin rank, avoided this place due to the dangers that the forest itself held. Only one was crazy enough to frequent here, aside from himself. Not wasting any more time, Naruto summoned around 100 clones and divided them into small groups. Instructing one group to practice tree walking, another to set to work on water walking, another group to practice fuinjutsu, and the last group he split in half. One half practice throwing kunai, and the other half throwing shuriken. With his clones setting off on their assigned tasks, the original removed his monstrous orange jumpsuit, leaving him in only a pair of dark blue shorts, and a black t-shirt. He really hated that jumpsuit and cursed the old bastard for forcing him to wear it. Of course he knew why the bastard instilled that false memory of orange being his favorite color. It made him stand out more, easier to hunt down for the villagers' fox hunts. Making a mental note to trash any remnants of his orange clothing as soon as he got back home where he belonged, and replace them with his favorite colors. Black and red. Moving over to one of the training posts, he began to execute perfect strikes into the post. Barely registering the impact as his knuckles and shins smashed into the hard wood. The indentations on the post where his strikes connected made it very clear he had been doing this since his return from Wave. Though, as they often did, memories began to float to the front of his mind. Of his life in Barugakar. All his girls, his home smiling at him, his mother hugging him. The villagers actually treated him with kindness and respect. Then Kakashi, the bastard, lures him away to an isolated training field. A false promise of teaching him one of his father's famous jutsus. The night everything came undone, and destroyed. So caught up in his memories that Naruto didn't notice the blood coming from his shin as he began to kick the post harder, until in one last, powerful strike, he broke the training post in half. Snapping him out of his thoughts. The blonde cursed as a wave of pain washed over him as he came crashing back to reality. Damn Gaki. A voice called out from behind him, prompting him to turn to see the snake mistress making her way over to him. Hey Anko-chan. Naruto smiled, as he turned to greet the approaching snake mistress. So what's got you so upset that you decided to chop down the training post with just your legs? Anko inquired in a teasing tone, though an underlying hint of concern was evident. Just bad memories. He replied honestly with a sigh. Kami, I wish I could tell her the truth. Then tell her Kit. Kurama stated. I can sense she truly cares for you, hell, she may even love you. She's not that much older than you. This of course earned a slight blush from the blonde as he struggled to mentally shake himself out of his inner monologue. Still being haunted by what happened on your last mission outside the village, Gaki? The snake mistress asked, taking a seat on a fallen log. Frowning slightly, Naruto came to his decision. No, something else. He sighed as he walked over to the same log, and sat down just a small bit away from her. Anko-chan, what I am about to tell you is a secret that I trust you with. Hearing the seriousness in the boy's tone, Anko turned her full attention to him. Turning herself so that she was now straddling the log, facing directly at the young blonde. Concern etched in her face. I don't belong here. He started with a sigh, causing her to narrow her eyes slightly at his words. This village, it's not my home. What do you mean Gaki? She asked. I know the villagers are and will rot in hell for the shit they have pulled. It's not that Anko-chan. Naruto interrupted her, causing her to scowl slightly. The truth is, 7 years ago, I was kidnapped from my home in Barugakar, under the orders of the current Hokage. At this revelation, Anko's eyes widened to comical proportions. Silently, she moved closer and brought the blonde teen into a hug. Inadvertently, smashing his head into her, causing him to blush fiercely at the closeness. Though, she believed him. She knew all too well that the village was not the beacon of purity that it claimed to be. You're training to leave, aren't you Naruto-kun? She asked, her voice soft in a very un-Anko-like tone. Yes. He replied honestly, gently pulling away from her to look her in the eyes. Though blushed as he realized just how beautiful she looked. I want to go home. Away from the hate and the pain. The Chunin exams. She whispered. What? Starting this week is the Chunin exams. Anko continued. That will be your chance. Lots of people from foreign countries will be coming in and out of the village. That's your best chance to escape. Anko-chan. With all the movement, it should give you a head start before they send anyone after you. She continued, tears forming in her eyes as she sniffled slightly. Come with me, Anko-chan. He offered, earning a surprised look from the snake mistress. Gently taking her hand into his own. Now it was her turn to look at the blonde in confusion, realizing what he was asking. I know you've gone through the same shit as me. He pressed, moving slightly closer to bring her into a comforting hug. I know the villagers also treat you like shit. You would be welcomed in Barugakure. But if I leave, they won't remove the seal the snake bastard put on me. She tried to protest, though it was weak. Anko-chan. He sighed. I don't think these bastards ever plan on actually removing it from you. It's just a false promise to string you along. Just like Kakashi Baka does with me with new jutsus. Hearing this, Anko couldn't prevent the tears from falling from her eyes. She had her doubts the old man would ever come through with his promise of freeing her from her past, but she knew the blonde teen was right. He was only stringing her along. Sobs racking her body as she silently admitted the truth to herself. But don't worry, hubby Haim. He smiled as he brought her face up to look at him, causing her to blush at his nickname for her. I promise you that we will get it off you and free you from that bastard. Hearing this, the snake mistress did the first thing that came to mind. She launched forward and captured the blonde's lips with her own. Catching him by surprise, though, he returned her kiss as he was forced to lay back on the log with the seductive snake mistress on top of him. Good going, Kit, you got another one. Kurama laughed inside the boy's mind. Now you just need 4 more to fill all the seats of your family council. One step at a time, Arrow Fox. Naruto mentally shot back at his tenant and older brother figure. We don't even know if she will. Oh wow, she's using her tongue. At this, the giant fox barked with laughter as the snake mistress assaulted his host's mouth with her own tongue. Things were going to get interesting, and soon. Barugakure, one day earlier. Kushina gazed out of the window of her office, overlooking a majority of the village of Barugakure. It had been just over a month since the girls had returned from Wave Country and had begun their training for the upcoming Chunin exams that were to be hosted by Konoha. The woman had long since sent the proper paperwork to get her team into the exams, under the guise of strengthening relationships between the two villages. Fortunately, the required paperwork went through the Fire Daimyo's court, and not the local village council. Knowing that Konoha was behind the kidnapping of her son, she was positive that if Hiruzen had to approve the papers, he would isolate Naruto away from the village just to keep him out of sight while they were there. The mere thought that the old bastard was behind her son's kidnapping made her blood boil. When she had learned the news, she was tempted to follow Rory and Morgiana's idea and storm the village, but years of being a village leader herself had done much to temper her recklessness from her youth. Her main priority now was to simply extract her son. She would deal with the war once he was safe. Mission success, Barukage-sama. A deep voice spoke from behind her. Turning, she saw a rather tall and lean man with a gymnast's body. His face was obscured by a metallic mask that gave off the impression of being a skull. Reaching up, the man before her removed his mask and lowered his hood, exposing a rugged face with a scruffy beard and shaggy long hair. What did you find, Corvo? She inquired as she took her seat behind her desk, waiting for her top spy master and to report on his recent mission. As you requested, I investigated the new village that had popped up in Rice Country. The man began. I learned that it is being led by the missing nin, Orochimaru. Furthermore, upon investigating inside the village walls, I came across something interesting. And what's that? He plans to invade Konoha during the upcoming Chunin exams, during the finals. Corvo replied as he produced a few scrolls. I've copied down his plans. Looks like he has talked Suna into joining him, due to the financial stress the village has been under due to their own Wind Daimyo forwarding missions to Konoha instead. Taking the scrolls, Kushina began to read over them. narrowing her eyes slightly before a ghost of a smile visited her lips. I also heard that young Naruto-sama has been found. The man ventured, garnering the attention of the red-haired woman once more. You overheard the girls, didn't you? She smiled, earning a nod in acknowledgement from her spymaster. Just over a month ago we felt Kurama's chakra signature spike. I sent the girls to investigate the source, a small village in Wave Country. Upon arriving there, they discovered that Naruto-kun had been there with a team of genin from Konoha. Corvo narrowed his eyes at this, clearly upset that a close ally would betray them in such a way. The mark on his left hand pulsates with power. He knew he should have searched Konoha first, despite the Hokage's reassurances that they were doing what they could to help find the missing boy. Say the word, and I will have him home before nightfall. He stated. As much as I would love that, I have something else in mind. Kushina sighed. The girls will be entering the Chunin exams as genins. Their mission is to locate Naruto-kun in the situation, and extract him. Don't know if I should feel sorry for anyone who gets in their way. He commented with a small chuckle. However, with the information you have provided about this new sound village, and Orochimaru's plans to invade has given us a new opportunity. She continued. When the invasion begins, I have a special mission for you. This is what I want you to do. At this, Corvo paid rapt attention to his new mission he was being given. A grin twitching at his lips. Naruto was not in the best of moods recently. Just hours ago, the old bastard had made a surprise visit to his apartment, forcing the young blonde to dispel his blood clone. As the old man had made a habit of walking around the young teen's apartment, in the guise of having a grandfatherly talk with the boy. Though Naruto had caught on to what the bastard was really doing. Making a mental list of anything deemed too nice for the weapon to own. It was no coincidence that shortly after one of these surprise visits from the old man, that his apartment would get broken into and vandalized. Oftentimes with some of his more treasured items being stolen or destroyed. He had originally had his suspicions before the Wave mission, though the loyalty seal that had been placed on him had prevented him from accusing the elderly man of doing such a thing. Fortunately, he began to stash what few precious items he had in a secure spot away from his apartment, prior to his mission in Wave. Not that it was much. Only a few gifts that had been given to him by his few precious people. Looking back, he was extremely grateful that he never removed his most precious item, his necklace. Thanks to seals that had been placed there by his mother, making it so that even if the necklace were to somehow be removed, he would return right back to him within seconds. No doubt, that was one item the old bastard desperately wanted to remove from the boy's possession. He could feel it every time Hiruzen glanced at the necklace. Simply because the necklace gave the boy a sense of individuality. Unfortunately, the elder man had taken much longer than usual with his visit. No doubt double-checking the blonde seals discreetly as he made small talk. By the time the Hokage had left the apartment, Naruto was already running behind, forcing him to rush to meet with his team for the day. As such, he was unable to recreate his blood clone before he ran out the door, since creating such a clone required at least half an hour to complete. Meaning that until he could safely recreate a blood clone, he was vulnerable to the old bastard's spying. Of course he knew he would still be arriving early to the training ground, due to Kakashi's constant habit of being late, which would have given him time to complete the clone, but it would also attract unwanted attention on himself if he didn't continue on as normal. Thus, putting him in between a rock and a hard place. Finally reaching his team's training ground, Naruto let out a tired yawn and settled himself against one of the training posts. He figured he would have at least another half hour before Sakura showed up, and then another 15 minutes for Sasuke to arrive. Then finally, another 2.5 hours before the bastard of a sensei and his kidnapper would grace them with his appearance. As he waited for the rest of his team to arrive, Naruto began to think back about his talk with Enko yesterday. After the impromptu make-out session that the snake mistress had initiated, not that he minded, he had told her everything there was about him. Feeling that if she was going to leave the village with him, she should know everything. From his earlier years in Barugakure, his tenant, and of course, his engagement to the 5 girls. He had expected her to be upset at him for not telling her before she kissed him, but to his surprise, she merely teased him about having his own little harem. Which had caused him to scowl slightly. He really didn't like the word harem, as it implied that those involved with him had no free will and were merely there for his own pleasure. Instead, he informed the snake mistress that he preferred to see it as his own growing family. Something the snake mistress had found endearing. Afterwards, they had begun discussing their plans to leave the village. Enko had informed him that the best time would be during the second phase of the Chunin exams, otherwise known as the finals. As it was customary for there to be some preliminary rounds to further weed out the participants, as well as a month-long break between the preliminaries and the finals. Enko had explained that this was to allow the finalists to train themselves further to give them an edge over their opponent, and second, the month-long break was there to allow foreign dignitaries to arrive to witness the final matches. With all the people coming and going, it would be the best time for the two of them to sneak out of the village and get a good head start towards Barugakure. Unknown to both of them, a rescue mission was in progress to get him out of the village. Morning Naruto-kun. A feminine voice broke the blonde out of his musings. Morning Sakura-chan. The blonde greeted, though was surprised at her use of the kun suffix with his name. Sakura had also seemed to notice this and blushed slightly. A little bit embarrassed. Not to mention, what Ino had pointed out the previous day had only brought forth what she did not want to admit, at least not yet. That she now had a crush on the blonde. Which was really awkward for her, since his crush on her died in wave, only for her to develop one for him. I give it 15 more minutes before Sasuke-tem arrives. Naruto noted as he stood up and stretched, allowing a series of pops and cracks to be heard. Then another 2.5 hours before Kakashi-sensei shows up. Sure enough, nearly 15 minutes later, Sasuke arrived on the training field. Being his usual brooding self. Opting to sit away from his other 2 teammates. Though he eyed the 2 suspiciously, trying to figure out what the 2 seemed different. The last Uchiha couldn't put his finger on it, but over the last month both Sakura and Naruto had subtly changed. Sakura now seemed to have more energy and actually began to take her career as a kunoichi seriously. Not even pestering him for a single date in an entire month. If anything, aside from a standard greeting, she ignored him. Making Sasuke feel a bit conflicted. On one hand, he was relieved that she had begun to take her training more seriously. On the other, his days felt a little empty without her constant request for a date. Still, such emotions would only distract him from his goal to avenge his clan. As for Naruto, the Uchiha didn't know, but he felt as if his blonde teammate was hiding something. Not just from him, but from everyone in the village. The boy's posture gave the raven-haired boy the distinct feeling that the blonde was way more aware of his surroundings than he let on. Not to mention, there were times it would appear the blonde would zone out, as if he was listening to something or something else. Then there was the fact that both Sakura and the blonde were becoming close to one another and constantly hanging out or training together in their spare time. Still, as long as they didn't get in his way or slow him down, he didn't care what they did. As the 3 genin settled into their own activities with Naruto and Sakura quietly conversing with one another and Sasuke brooding by himself, time slowly ticked by. Eventually, after what seemed like an eternity had passed, the 2.5-hour mark came, and went with no sign of their sensei. Well, looks like your timing is off. Sakura teased, though internally she was becoming frustrated that their sensei had yet to appear as it was starting to near the 4-hour mark, and still no sign of the lazy Jonin. Something probably came up. You know how he is. The blonde shrugged as he glanced in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Probably the beginning of the Chunin exams that Anko-chan told us about. She did say that it was starting this week, after she finished probing your tonsils. Kurama voiced his opinion with a laugh, causing his host to blush at the memory. Arrow Fox. Hokage's Tower. I, Kurenai Yuhi, nominate my team of Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame for the Chunin exams. A red-eyed beauty stated with confidence. I, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey, Maida Guy, nominate my youthful team of Tenten Higurashi, Neji Hyuga, and my most youthful student, Rock Lee, for the Chunin exams. A large, well-built man in a green jumpsuit proudly exclaimed, earning a series of sweat drops from his peers. I, Asuma Sarutobi, nominate my team of Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Choji Akamichi for the Chunin exams. The bearded man calmly stated, taking a drag from the cigarette that was in his mouth. Nodding at the Jonin sensei's nomination of their respected teams in front of him, Hiruzen turned his attention to the last remaining sensei, who of course had his nose stuck in his favorite orange book. And what about your team, Kakashi? Looking up from his book in a lazy manner, the masked Jonin let out a small sigh. I nominate my team for the Chunin exams. He replied lazily as he turned his attention back to his book, without a care in the world. Foregoing the usual standard introduction of the team members that the other senseis had done before him. Very well. The Hokage stated as he rose from his desk, a small pile of papers in his hands that he began to hand out to the Jonin senseis before him. Give these to your teams, have them fill them out and turn them in before the end of the day. With a vocal affirmation, the three other senseis departed the office, leaving behind Kakashi, who finally put his book away. Are you sure your team is ready? Hiruzen eyed the masked Jonin skeptically. Should the boy die, we will lose our weapon. All he has to do is survive the first half of the exam. Kakashi stated calmly. Which, with the help of his team, he will see to it that he does. The elder man stated in a cold tone. I will not have our weapon lost before we can use it. Also, the silver-haired man began. The Forest of Death portion of the test would be the perfect time for the Haruno girl to have an accident. Do you feel that the two of them have bonded enough? While they are not intimate, she never leaves his side. Kakashi pointed out. Anbu could handle it easily enough. No. The elder man shot down the idea. We can't risk her surviving, or worse, the weapon witnessing one of our own killing her. It would be best if one of the other genin teams were to remove her. At this, the old man had an idea. I'll talk to Danzo, and see if he can spare a team of disposable root members. The Hokage stated. They kill the girl, and the weapon kills again. For now, go and give your team their papers. As you wish, Hokage-sama. Kakashi bowed before leaving the elder man to his thoughts. Hopefully this will be the final push to break the boy's mind. Training Ground 7. Frustrated. That would be the best way to describe the trio that made up Team 7. They had been waiting for almost 5 hours now, and still, there was no sign of their sensei. At this point, for the first time since the team's creation, all three agreed on one thing. Kakashi Hatake would be late to his own funeral. Though if it were up to Naruto, the bastard wouldn't even be given a proper burial. Yo! A plume of smoke erupted from the top of the training pole that Sasuke had decided to lean against. Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to take the long way around. But then I was forced into a hand-walk race with a one-armed yeti. All three of the genins couldn't help but to sweat drop at the masked man's excuse this time. It was by far the most outlandish one to date. So what are we doing today, Kakashi-sensei? The blonde asked with genuine interest. Any new missions? Actually no. The man replied with an eye smile. I nominated you three for the Chunin exams. Jumping down off the post, he handed each of his students the slip of paper he had been given to allow them to enter the exams. Fill these out and have them turned in immediately. Without giving any real instruction, he disappeared in another puff of smoke, leaving behind 3 bewildered genins. Well, I don't know about you two, but I am definitely entering. Naruto started with a fox-like grin, earning a small smirk from the Uchiha. See you there, done. Sasuke started with a smirk as he shoved the paper into his pocket and left the training field. Are you sure about this, Naruto? Sakura inquired, clearly worried. Of course I am, Sakura-chan. He exclaimed, giving her a reassuring smile. We're strong enough to handle this. I can't let some test scare me if I am going to be Hokage someday. Despite saying this, Naruto was worried on the inside. Knowing that the masked bastard was behind his kidnapping, he wasn't expecting him to actually nominate them for the exams. Hell, he fully expected the pervert to come up with some bullshit excuse as to why they wouldn't be able to participate in the exams. Still, if he backed out now, it would only bring scrutiny down upon him and jeopardize his chance to escape the village. Well, I am going to go fill my slip out and turn it in. Naruto stated to the pinkett. Just know, Sakura-chan, that if you don't think you are ready for it, I will not think any less of you. Receiving a nod from the pink-haired girl, the blonde set off to submit himself to the exams. No, I cannot let Naruto-kun down. Sakura thought to herself. We are ready for this. Let's show them, cha. Konoha Gates, 2 hours later. As late afternoon hung over the village, 6 figures made their way towards the massive gates. A flurry of emotions swirling between all of them. A mixture of excitement, anxiety, and a small trace of fear. At the head of the group was Kairi. The young redhead was eager to see her fiancé for the first time in 7 years, despite Aqua reminding her to keep her expectations tempered, and to be emotionally prepared for anything. So what's the plan, Nagato-sensei? Xion inquired, shifting the weight of the massive blade she now carried on her back. Should we ask around and look for Naruto-kun right away or? No, do not ask about him. Answered the red-haired man that was acting as their Jonin-sensei for the exams. We know that Hitaki kidnapped him, no doubt under the Hokage's orders. If you were to ask around for him, it would alert them to our true purpose. Xion nodded in response, though like her red-headed friend, she was also anxious to see him again. It was the feeling of being so close, yet so far away at the same time. I don't know about you guys, but I am starving. Morgiana pipped in as a small grumbling noise could be heard from her stomach, causing her to blush in embarrassment and eliciting a round of giggles from the others. When we arrive in Konoha, you all get our hotel rooms. Aqua, the true leader of the mission stated. I will stop at the ramen stand that Kushina-sama had recommended we try before we left. What if we see Naruto-kun? Rory asked, prompting the blue-haired girl in front of them to stop abruptly and turn towards the group that also stopped. If you see him, approach him with caution. The young blue-haired woman stated calmly. We don't know how he will react, nor do we know how closely he is being watched over. If you can talk with him, be subtle about the situation. Understood, Aqua-chan. The halberd-wielding beauty replied. Also, as tempting as it is, do not attack any of the Konoha shinobi unless attacked first. The blue-haired woman continued. Keep in mind, there may be innocents. Both Morgiana and Rory adopted a scowl on their faces. The two of them really wanted to dish out some personal justice to the village, but their future sister-wife had a point. Short of those involved blatantly advertising it, there would be no way to tell who was innocent and who was not in the kidnapping of their beloved. Also mind your emotions for anyone who may speak out against young Naruto. Nagato pointed out. As you know, only Kumogakure and Barugakure are the only 2 hidden villages that treat their Jinchuriki with respect. Do you think his status as a Jinchuriki was leaked to the public? Kairi asked in a worried tone. I wouldn't put it past the old man. The red-haired male sighed. It's common practice to abuse the Jinchuriki both mentally and physically in most villages to mentally condition them. Though from what you have reported from Wave, it seems he hasn't been broken yet. Which is good. Let's hurry then, and bring our beloved home. Xion stated, earning nods of agreement. Another 20 minutes saw that at the gates of the village. Quickly signing in with the two Chunin that were on gate duty, the Barugakure group entered the village of Konoha. Sticking to the plan, Aqua split off from the group to acquire some ramen, while the other group made their way towards the hotel to reserve the rooms for the duration of the exams. Each of their eyes sharp, looking for any trace of their lost loved one. While Aqua went off to get the food, the rest of the Barugakure group continued on towards the Sleepy Willow Inn, an extravagant premier hotel within Konoha. Earning some curious looks from the various villagers, and some of the shinobi, such as Barugakure shinobi, were rarely seen within Konoha. As they approached the hotel, the group was approached by 3 genins from Konoha. One with a dark pair of sunglasses hiding his eyes, while a large coat covered the lower half of his face. Beside him was a shy-looking girl with pearly white eyes and lavender-colored hair. The last was a feral-looking boy with a white puppy on his head, 2 red upside-down triangles adorning his face. Damn, you look good. The feral boy stated as his team approached the group, all while eyeing Morgiana up and down, causing her to narrow her eyes slightly. Kiba-san, please do not harass our guests. The boy in the large coat said in a monotone voice, before turning his attention towards the group as a whole. If I am to guess, you are here for the Chunin exams. That is correct, Xion replied, though her tone held a cold edge to it. Forgive me, my name is Shino Aburame. The boy now identified as Shino introduced himself before gesturing to his 2 teammates. And this is Hinata Hyuga, and Kiba Inuzuka. Pleased to meet you. Kairi gave a small bow. My name is Kairi, and these are Xion, Rory, Morgiana, and our sensei, Nagato. It was with the introduction of the only male in the group, did the members of Team 8 notice the taller, red-haired man. His piercing blue eyes focused in on the 3 of them, making it feel as if he were gazing into their very soul. Shaking off his shock, Kiba turned his attention back towards the pink-haired girl. So, Morgiana-chan. He grinned. How would you like to go on a date with a true alpha? At this, the girl in question leveled a cold glare at the boy. Not interested. She merely replied with a scoff. Ah, come on, don't be like that. The boy persisted, much to the annoyance of the rest of the girls, and the embarrassment of his own team. I'm sure once you see just how much of an alpha I am, you'll fall for me. Not likely, mutt. Morgiana growled out, as the boy was getting on her nerves. And I will have you know, I am already engaged to someone. Really? Who is it? Kiba all but demanded, a growl in his voice that someone dare lay claim on what he perceived as his. I'll beat him down and then make you submit to me. At this, all of the girls cast a dark glare at the boy. The fact that he had the audacity to threaten their beloved had angered them. Even more so, was the fact that the boy showed he cared nothing for loyalty and integrity and no doubt, viewed women as only trophies. So is this how Konoha shinobi view loyalty and commitment? Xion inquired, turning towards the feral boy, a cold look in her golden eyes. If so, perhaps our village should reevaluate our alliance. Kiba-kun, you're making our village look bad. Spoke the shy Hyuga girl in a soft voice. Please forgive our teammate, we believe his sister dropped him on his head when he was an infant. Shino stated in his monotone voice, though earning a few curious looks from his teammates, that the normally all-serious Aburama had cracked a joke at his teammates' expense. We hope you enjoy your stay in our village. Hinata bowed. Yeah, I'll be seeing you later. Kiba said, not taking his eyes off Morgiana. I swear, that must better pray to Kami we don't get matched up against each other. Morgiana growled, clenching her fist tightly. Because so help me if we do, he is not walking away whole. I have to say Xion-san, you handled that rather well. Nagato commented, calling into question their stance on loyalty and integrity. He then turned towards the pink-haired Kunoichi. And I am proud of you as well, Morgiana-san. You restrained yourself well, when faced with the boy's arrogance. Thank you, Nagato-sensei. The two girls smiled. Now, let us be off. Naruto. It had been non-stop all afternoon for the young blonde. As decided, he had immediately filled out his sheet and entered himself into the Chunin exams, ignoring the glare the receptionist gave him when he turned in his paper. Then he had stopped off to visit Anko, who was none too pleased that he had entered the exams. It had taken some time to calm her down, as well as a few kisses, but in the end, she relented. It would seem out of character for him to not attempt to pass the exams. Having calmed the snake mistress, Naruto now found himself seated at his favorite place, with a hot bowl of ramen in front of him. Probably the only thing in the village he would miss when he and Anko finally escaped this cesspool, but then again, no matter how good Ichiraku's was, it still didn't compare to his mother's home cooking. However, he froze mid-bite as he sensed someone. Cautiously, he turned his head just slightly to see out of the corner of his eye, the blue-haired beauty who was frozen in place behind him. She's here. If she's here, then the others are probably with her. What should I do? I can't talk openly with her. He mentally exclaimed, cursing himself for not taking the time to recreate his blood clone. Knowing that a squad of Anbu was observing him now. Though he didn't recognize the chakra signatures. Calm down kid and think. Kurama stated as the beast pondered the situation. What about that game you and the girls played during your preliminary school days, when you would send each other secret messages? Game. Secret messages. Naruto's eyes suddenly widened in realization. That's it. I suggest a late-night meeting in Training Ground 44, since no one ever goes there except for Anko. Right. Doing what he could to calm himself, Naruto took another bite from his ramen and waited for his blue-haired goddess to approach the stand. It was clear that she recognized him. He didn't have to wait long, as the young woman entered the stand and took a seat next to him. Welcome to Ichiraku's, what can I get you? Ayame asked the new arrival with her usual cheer. 6 large miso ramen to go please. Aqua politely ordered, prompting the young waitress to disappear back into the kitchen, leaving the two alone. First time here? Naruto asked, striking up a conversation with the blue-haired beauty. All the while, tapping his finger on the counter with his left hand. Aqua narrowed her eyes slightly in thought as he listened to the rhythm of the taps. Racking her memory before she realized what he was doing. It was obvious her blonde beloved was under scrutiny from the village, so he was giving her a message in code. Training Ground 44, midnight. Yes, my team and I are here for the Chunin exams. Aqua answered, while also tapping her finger in another series of taps. Understood. I'm in the exams too. Naruto smiled, causing her heart to melt. To finally be able to see his radiant smile after so many years of being without it. Here you go, that'll be 6,000 ryo. Ayame informed the blue-haired young woman. Nodding, Aqua dug into her pouch only to be stopped by Naruto. Subtly giving her a wink, causing the normally stoic woman to blush lightly. Here, let me take care of that for you. He stated as he brought out his own wallet and paid for her food. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. Thank you again, Naruto-san. She almost slipped up. I hope to see you in the exams. Nodding, Naruto turned back to his meal as Aqua departed the ramen stand with an invigorated pace to return to the hotel and tell the others the good news. Oh sure, now leave. Naruto mentally grumbled as he felt the chakra signatures of the Anbu that had been watching him fade away. Aqua. The young brunette wasted no time in returning to the hotel where the other girls were residing. Locking onto their chakra signatures, she quickly used her frost sunshine and appeared inside the room the five girls would be sharing, whereas Nagato had taken a room for himself. Calming herself, she set the food on the table and took a deep breath to try and calm her emotions, which failed as she let out an excited squeal that attracted everyone's attention. Aqua-chan, are you alright? Kairi inquired as she entered the kitchen area with the others. Each sporting a confused and curious look, as the blue-haired teen hardly ever let her emotions get the best of her. Well, she smiled. I ran into Naruto-kun in the ramen stand. As soon as his name left her mouth, the others were immediately upon her. Asking what he looked like, if he remembered them, and above all, if he was alright. Yes, he remembers us, but he is being monitored. She sadly explained. But he will be in the exams. So, we don't get to see him until tomorrow afternoon then. Xion asked, with sadness in her voice. No. Aqua answered with a smile. We are to meet with him tonight at midnight in Training Ground 44. Hearing this, all of the girls seemed to brighten up. The thought of finally being able to reunite with their beloved greatly lifts their spirits, giving them hope that everything was going to be alright. Be sure to inform Nagato-sensei. Aqua reminded them, mostly so the elder Uzumaki man didn't need to worry about them. 8 hours later. After the encounter with Aqua at the ramen stand, Naruto had wasted no time in returning to his apartment and recreating his blood clone. That old bastard be damned, he was not going to miss the chance to reconnect with his girls. Now, he found himself pacing back and forth in the middle of the Forest of Death, otherwise known as Training Ground 44. This of course was getting on Kyuubi's nerves, but he kept quiet. Kurama understood how his host felt, and pitied him. Suddenly, he froze as he felt 5 very familiar and very warm chakra signatures a short distance behind him. Slowly turning, he saw his girls. A look of worry and relief etched in all of their faces. Seeing them again, tears formed in his eyes, unable to hold back his emotions that were surging within him. Facing them, he made one step forward before he was tackled to the ground by a crying redhead. Instinctively, he wrapped his arms around the crying form of Kairi and embraced her with a firm hug. Almost as if he was afraid she would disappear if he let go. It's really you. Kairi cried into his chest, before leaning up and giving him a full kiss on the mouth. One he gladly returned. By now the others had gathered around their blonde beloved, each embracing them in their own hugs and kisses after Kairi and reluctantly relinquished him from her grip. What happened to Naruto-kun? Rory asked, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you try and contact us? Letting out a sigh, the young blonde sat down on a fallen log, prompting the girls to do the same. Guess I better start from the beginning, he stated. All 5 of the girls silently seethed in anger and disgust as their blonde lover had finished his tale of what had exactly happened on his end. How he had 2 seals placed upon him that blocked his memories and made him loyal to only the Hokage, and by extension, Konoha. Though each silently thankful that Kurama's chakra had finally managed to break the seals that had kept their love subdued. What even infuriated them further was how the old bastard had allowed the village to treat Naruto. Everything from the beatings to being sabotaged in his schooling. Even further, when the girls learned that Hiruzen had lied to Naruto about his parents, playing them off as some poor civilians that died during the Kyuubi attack. Which begged the question, why did Hiruzen allow Naruto to keep his name? From what both Kurama and Naruto could determine, it was simply because his Uzumaki blood would not allow him to forget his proud heritage. While the memory seal worked to make him forget his mother and those close to him, he always remembered his name. The young blonde had recalled when Hiruzen had attempted to have him be named Menma, only for Naruto to correct him every time that his name was Naruto, not Menma. After a few days, the elder Hokage had given up on changing the Jinchuriki's name and came up with a bullshit cover story that he had given the orphan boy the name of Kushin's missing son in honor of the lost boy. If only just to ward off any suspicions from Kushina's close friends that still resided within the village. The civilian families ate it up, as did most of the shinobi clan heads, with only Sum of the Inuzuka clan showing any signs of suspicion. If the feral woman did suspect anything, she kept it to herself. And that's pretty much it. Naruto finished with a sigh. Wait, did that old bastard really try to change your name to Menma? Rory inquired with a sneer. Yeah. The blonde teenage boy sighed. Son of a bitch wanted to completely erase my identity. There were also several times he tried to take my necklace from me, though thanks to the seals Ka-chan put on it, it never worked. Speaking of which. Naruto frowned in confusion. Why are you girls here? Not that I am complaining. This of course earned a round of giggles from the girls. Well, after we felt Kurama-sama's chakra signature, Kushina-sama speculated that it came from Wave Country and sent us to investigate it. Aqua began with a soft smile, as it was the day that hope reignited in all of them. Explains why Xion-chan has Zabuza's old sword. Kurama commented, earning a mental nod from the blonde. We missed you by a week. Kairi commented sadly. Sorry. Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. But it's okay now. The red-haired girl smiled and latched onto the blonde. After we learned you were here, Kushina-sama sent us here to bring you back home. We can leave tomorrow. At this, all of the other girls agreed. However, it didn't go unnoticed that Naruto didn't show the same excitement. Slowly, the blonde shook his head with a sigh, though before the girls could ask him why, he turned his head and looked at a nearby tree. You can come out now, Anko-chan. He called out, much to the confusion of the girls. After a few seconds of silence, the lithe form of Konoha's snake mistress came into view as she stepped out from behind the tree that Naruto had been looking at. A mixture of surprise, concern, and a bit of sadness evident on her face as she slowly approached the group. While she knew of the girls and Naruto's connection to them, she was still surprised to see all 5 of them here within the village. Especially hearing that they were here specifically to find him, and bring him back home. This was also why the normally confident snake mistress was feeling concerned. Now that the girls from Barukagir were here, more specifically, they were here for him. Not the Chunin exams, but for Naruto himself. Despite how ludicrous it seemed, Anko felt a sense of fear fester to life within her that now that Naruto had a means to escape, he would abandon her. However, her musings were cut short when she felt a pair of arms embrace her. I know what you're thinking, hubby Haim. The blonde smiled at her. I will not abandon you. We stick to the plan. Naruto-kun, who is she? Kairi asked, with the others each looking to their blonde beloved. Forgive me. Naruto started with a small bow in apology for the lack of introductions. Ladies, this is Anko Mitarashi, she will be coming with us back to Barugakure. Anko, these are my fiancés I told you about. Hey there. Anko greeted me cheerfully. Though Naruto could see that it was a front that she was putting on. He knew she was scared. Scared that he would leave her, and scared that the girls would not accept her. Nice to meet you, I'm Kairi. Kairi smiled, embracing the snake mistress in a hug, much to Anko's shock. I am Aqua. The blue-haired young woman introduced herself with a smile. And on behalf of all of us, I would like to thank you for looking after Naruto-kun. It was nothing. Anko tried to wave it off as no big deal. I didn't do much actually. You did more than you can imagine, just for being there for him when we couldn't. Xion stated, before introducing herself. Name's Xion by the way. Xion-chan is right, Anko-chan. Rory commented with her own smile. I'm Rory, also known as the Reaper. Wait, you're Rory the Reaper. Anko exclaimed in shock that someone so young had earned such a reputation throughout the elemental nations. Especially since she began to earn her alias when she was only 7. Hee hee, yup. The ruby-eyed, black-haired girl giggled, scratching the back of her head sheepishly. We all took Naruto-kun's disappearance hard. Rory-chan just decided to use every bandit camp she saw to take out her frustration for an entire week. Morgiana explained just how her future sister-wife got her title. By the way, I am Morgiana. Well ladies, looks like we got a new future sister-wife. Aqua grinned, teasingly bopping Naruto on the head lightly, which prompted him to nervously chuckle while scratching the back of his head. Enko, however, was in tears. Throughout her years living in Konoha, she would have never dreamed of being so easily accepted by the others. Not to say she didn't have any friends within the village, but their number was small. While there was no end to the people who would fake sympathy and concern all for a chance to get into her pants. Of course, once they were denied, they always showed their true colors. Seeing this, the 5 girls brought the snake mistress in for a comforting hug. Each whispering their own comforting words to the young woman. So, what's this about a plan? Aqua inquired, once Anko had calmed down. Well, Anko-chan and I were already planning on leaving the village during the finals. Naruto began to explain. As it is customary for there to be a month break in between the second phase of the exam and the finals, and with all the daimyos, cages, and other foreign visitors, it would be easier to sneak out and be long gone before anyone noticed we were missing. Especially since I am planning on leaving a blood clone behind with Kurama's chakra to throw them off the scent for a while. During the finals, Xion asked, earning a nod from the snake mistress and the blonde. That's when Orochimaru is supposed to be invading Konoha. Rory commented. At the mention of Orochimaru, Enko immediately snapped her attention to the black-haired girl. Did you say Orochimaru? Yes, he plans to invade Konoha during the final matches. Morgiana answered. Yeah, the snake bastard plans on using the Suna shinobi as cannon fodder while he holds his own shinobi back. Rory commented with a sneer. Not to mention, he will be using Suna's Jinchuriki to spearhead the attack. Naruto could see the anger rising up within the snake mistress at the mention of her former sensei's name, and that he was going to be within the village during the exams. Reaching up, he gently guided Anko's face to his own, allowing him to stare into her eyes. I know how you feel about that bastard Anko-chan. He spoke softly. But don't let your vendetta jeopardize our main goal. I promise you, hubby Heim, if he survives this invasion of his, we will track him down and kill him ourselves. But first, let's focus on getting out of this hellhole. You're right, Naruto-kun. The snake mistress agreed. I'm sorry for letting my emotions get to me. I just want to see that bastard drown in his own blood for what he did to me. Speaking of which, how do you know so much about his plan? Probably Corvo Oji-san. The blonde chuckled, earning nods from the 5 girls. He is my mother's #1 spy master. He never explained how he does it, but he can get into any place without detection. Yup. Kairi agreed. Well, initially our mission was to find and extract Naruto-kun. Aqua began with a smile. But we will not leave you behind, Anko-chan. We will report to Kushina-sama our findings, and of the change of plans and continue to partake in the exams as normal. However, Naruto sighed. The hard part will be for us to continue to act like we don't know each other until we leave. Meaning this will be the only time we can really be together. All 5 of the girls looked disheartened at this, but they knew their blonde beloved had a point. During the exams, he wouldn't be able to keep his blood clone up to run distraction. So they all would have to act as if they didn't recognize him, with the exception of Anko, though even she wouldn't be able to be open with the blonde as she had already been selected to be the proctor of the second phase of the exams. If that's the case, let's make this night count. Rory stated as she wrapped her arms around Naruto, planting a firm kiss on the blonde teen's lips. Of course this prompted a perverted giggle from the snake mistress. Not like that Anko-chan. Morgiana chuckled, sensing the snake mistress's line of thought. That comes later. Aqua added with a mischievous grin. Hey Kit, maybe you should put that seal on them you've been working on. Kurama reminded his host. That way everyone who bears the seal will know when another is in danger, and their location. That's actually a good idea. Naruto mentally nodded. Would you girls mind if I put a seal on you? Naruto suddenly asked, catching all of the girls' attention. What does it do, Naruto-kun? Kairi asked. Kurama and I have been working on it for a while. Anyone who has the seal will be able to feel when another is in danger, and give a rough location of where they are. The blonde replied. I trust you Naruto-kun. Xion stated as she stepped forward, volunteering to be the first one to have the seal placed upon her. Nodding, Naruto took out his Fuinjutsu ink and brush and set to work on the seal, which he had decided to put on her right shoulder blade. He really didn't have a fancy name for it, and settled for just calling it a lover's seal, since he only planned on placing it on his loved ones. What made these special and what really linked the seals together, was that each seal was infused with a small amount of Kurama's chakra. Just enough to power the seal, though still too little to cause any damage to the person. One by one, each of the girls got the seal placed upon them. All in the same location, due to how easy it would be to hide it, and also the fact that it was easier for Naruto to get to without putting his girls in any embarrassing positions. Even Anko got the seal placed upon her, though she had teased the young blonde that she wanted it on her left. Though much to her dismay, Naruto had politely refused with a severe blush on his face. Once done, the girls had decided that if tonight was going to be the only time they were going to be able to be with their beloved, they were going to sleep under the stars and make the most of the little time they had together. Each lay down in a circle with their heads facing the inside of the circle, so that they could all be close to one another. Hokage's office, next morning. Hiruzen hummed a happy tune to himself as he sat down at his desk and began to sift through the pile of paperwork that had already accumulated in the few short hours the village had woken up. Still, he did nothing to sour his mood. Why? Because Danzo had agreed to send a small team of 3 freshly trained root recruits to kill the Haruno girl. Though there was a slight disagreement on what village the team should be from. Hiruzen had insisted that root recruits wear the Barukagure headband, to try and force the Jinchuriki to lash out at his former village in anger and implant a sense of hatred towards it. Danzo, however, had argued against it, stating that it would be best if his root recruits simply posed as a neutral village. Citing that it would help in the long run and make the weapon more open to attacking any target ordered to without question, instead of relying on a grudge against just one village. Reluctantly, Hiruzen had conceded, as the old war hawk had a point. It would do him or the village any good if the weapon was only focused on one target. However, his cheerful tune quickly ceased when he picked up the previous day's sign-in sheet from the main gates of the village. Seeing a series of names, as well as the village of their origin. Barugakure. Upon reading the names of the visitors and the name of the village, all the color drained away from his face as he felt a chill go up his spine. All the while cursing himself for calling the council meeting the previous day to go over the major and minor details of the Chunin exams, thus making it so that he could not spy on the boy throughout most of the day. And when he did finally check on the boy, he was fast asleep in his apartment. Boar. The elder man called out. Immediately a large man bearing the boar mask appeared in a kneeling position in front of the village leader. Yes, Hokage-sama. Your team was assigned to follow the Jinchuriki yesterday. Did anyone approach him at any point throughout the day? Not really, sir. The boar Anbu reported. He met with his team as instructed and received his slip to enter the Chunin exams. The boy did his typical speech about accepting the challenge if he plans to become the Hokage someday. The only event of note was during his visit to the ramen stand, one of the girls from Barukagure entered and ordered 6 miso ramen to go. Did it appear that they knew each other? Hiruzen asked carefully. Knowing full well all of the girls that had come to attend the exams were friends with the boy at some point. Which made him a little suspicious of their arrival. No sir. The Anbu replied. The Jinchuriki had struck up an idle conversation with her and merely wished her luck in the exams before she departed the stand. It seems my initial fears were unfounded. Hiruzen thought to himself. It's too late to withdraw the weapon from the exams. The elderly man mentally sighed. So long as the seals hold, he will have no memory of them and it appears they have forgotten about him. Good. If anything else, I can use this to motivate him against his former home later. Thank you for your report, Boar. The Hokage stated. You are dismissed. Nodding, the boar-masked Anbu disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving the village elder to his own thoughts. Even if they are here, the weapon should be close to being mentally broken. Hiruzen grinned to himself at the thought of finally being able to wield the power of the Kyuubi. The Haruno girl's death should be the last straw. If not, I may have to arrange an accident with Anko Mitarashi. Academy. Naruto let out a tired yawn as he approached the academy to meet up with his team. Despite only having a few hours of sleep, the young blonde felt rather refreshed after spending the night with his fiancée for the first time in over 7 years. He also found out that Anko was a cuddler, much to the other girls' amusement, when the blonde had woken up with the snake mistress wrapped around his body. Having bid his farewells to his fiancées, Naruto had quickly made a mad dash towards his apartment and dispelled his blood clone before quickly taking a cold shower and getting dressed for the day's events. Morning Naruto. Sakura greeted the blonde as he approached, biting her lip to prevent her from openly using the kun suffix she desperately wanted to add to his name. Having come to terms with her crush on the blonde. About time you got here, done. Sasuke stated as he kicked off the wall he had been leaning against. Hey, sorry about that, I had a few things to take care of before I came here. Naruto chuckled, while scratching the back of his head. At this, Sasuke merely grunted in response, while Sakura eyed him suspiciously. The pinkett could tell that her blonde friend was not being completely honest, but had decided not to push the issue. At least for now, though she did make a mental note to corner the blonde teen about it later. You two ready? Naruto asked, earning a confident grunt from the Uchiha, which Naruto took as a yes, and a nod from Sakura. With that, the trio made their way inside the academy. As they made their way up a flight of stairs, they were immediately greeted with a swarm of people crowding around a door that was supposedly the room they were required to enter to start the exams. Though 2 Chunin-ranked shinobi were blocking any and all from entering. Being exceptionally rough to a young girl with her brown hair tied up into 2 buns, giving her sort of a panda-like appearance. Beat it twerps. One of the Chunin stated. You're too weak to even attempt this exam. Hey! The girl exclaimed as she hit the floor, glaring up at her assailant. One of the Chunin smirked as he went to deliver another powerful kick to the downed kunoichi, only for it to be blocked with a loud crack by the blonde Jinchuriki, much to the surprise of those present. Naruto on the other hand merely glared at the man before him. You alright? Naruto asked the kunoichi behind him, earning a nod in confirmation. However, before anything else could be said, Sasuke had approached the duo with an arrogant smirk. Drop the pathetic genjutsu, this is only the 2nd floor. He proudly stated. Hearing this, many who had gathered all mentally groaned that they had fallen for such an obvious trick, while others silently made their way up the next flight of steps. Naruto meanwhile, mentally slapped his forehead, since he knew the genjutsu was to weed out those who were not observant enough to make it in the exams. Sakura on the other hand, wasn't so keen to bite her tongue. Sasuke, she sighed. That was to weed out those not ready to take this exam. You should listen to your teammate. One of the Chunin stated as he dropped the henge, revealing himself to be an Anbu. You just paved the way for the death of many potential genin. If they are that weak, they shouldn't have become shinobi. Was all Sasuke commented on before ascending up the flight of stairs. Naruto and Sakura were about to follow before they were stopped by the bun-haired girl, and what appeared to be her teammates. Thank you for helping me back there. The girl started with a slight bow. My name is Tenten Higurashi. Konoha's weapons mistress. Nice to meet you, Tenten-san. Naruto replied. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Konoha's prankster king. This caused the girl now identified as Tenten to giggle as she recalled some of the blonde's exploits. While his painting of the Hokage monument was his most standout achievement, considering he did it in broad daylight, another incident came to mind for the budding weapons mistress. One of which involved a fair number of the Hyuga clan members falling victim to their undergarments being laced with itching powder. The only ones spared were most of the branch family, save for Neji, and only a handful from the main branch. Namely Hinata, Hanabi, and surprisingly, Hiyashi. It had been extremely amusing to the bun-haired girl to watch her teammate desperately try to now scratch himself during their training sessions. As such an action was not befitting a member of the great Hyuga clan. It was very youthful of you to defend Tenten-chan. An excited teen with a bowl haircut, dressed in a green spandex outfit exclaimed. I'm Rock Lee, Konoha's beautiful green wild beast. You must be strong to be able to block such an attack. I would like to spar with you right now. Normally, I would love to take you up on a friendly spar, but we don't want to be late for the exams. Naruto pointed out, earning a nod of agreement from Sakura, as well as Tenten. But perhaps we can spar later. Yash. You make a great point, Naruto-kun. Rock Lee exclaimed. We must hurry to complete this exam. If I fail to complete it, I will do 500 laps around the village with my hands. Is he always like that? The blonde asked, cocking his head to the side as he watched the excitable young genin dash up the stairs, continuing to rant on about various ludicrous challenges he would do if he failed. You have no idea. Tenten sighed. Good luck in the exams. With a bow, she departed with her final teammate that had refused to introduce himself. Well, shall we? Naruto asked his pink-haired teammate, earning a nod before the two of them departed up the stairs, unaware of a trio of eyes following their movements. Reaching the top of the stairs, and finally on the floor they were supposed to be on, the two were greeted by the sight of Kakashi waiting for them, with Sasuke leaning against the wall in a bored fashion. The masked Jonin eyed the two for a moment, almost as if he wanted to say something about how long it took the two of them to arrive. Good, all three of you made it. Kakashi started with his trademark eye smile. Because if even one of you decided not to come, the rest of the team would have been disqualified from the exams. Wait, why didn't you warn us about that yesterday? Sakura asked, a little annoyed that the silver-haired man had purposely left out a crucial piece of information. Because whether or not you took the exam was up to you. He replied with the same eye smile. I didn't want anyone to feel they were pressured into taking the exams. But you are here, so, good luck. With that, he disappeared into a puff of smoke. He's really not the best for pep talk, is he? Naruto inquired. Was all the Uchiha replied with, while Sakura merely giggled, but agreed nonetheless. With nothing left to say, the trio entered the actual exam room. Jonin Sensei room. With a small cloud, Kakashi appeared in the room just adjacent to the exam room, separated by a large glass window that was changed to appear like a solid wall from the other side. Allowing all of the Jonin senseis to monitor their students' performance, as well as allowing them to keep an eye out for other things as well. Looking out the glass window, his eyes immediately locked onto the massive sword on Xian's back. A wave of coldness washed over him as he recognized the 5 girls who were gathered in the far corner of the room. What are they doing here? He asked himself. And that was Zabuza's sword. Why does she have it? The only good thing the masked Jonin could take away was that neither of the girls seemed to notice Naruto, even when he went on his usual proclamation of passing this exam, just to show everyone he will become Hokage someday. Still, he felt uneasy that 5 girls who once had a close friendship with the boy were in such close proximity, though he knew there was nothing he could do about it. Kakashi could only imagine the fit the Hokage was having right now. Still, as long as the seals were active, Naruto shouldn't have any memory of his time in his home village. It's been a while, Kakashi-san. Breaking out of his musing, he lazily turned to the owner of the voice, seeing a fairly tall man with red hair approaching him. A soft smile on his face. Nagato-san. Kakashi greeted me. So you finally decided to become a sensei for a team? The red-haired man inquired. There was an exceptional list of students this year. The silver-haired man lied effortlessly. Since the only reason he took on the position of being the sensei of Team 7 was to keep an eye on Naruto and train the last surviving Uchiha to be able to control the Jinchuriki in the future. Every student is exceptional once you learn how to motivate them. Nagato replied with a smile. Though he could see right through the masked Jonin's lies. It was obvious what Kakashi was really doing as the team sensei. Especially considering the reports they had received from Tazuna and his family in Wave about the interactions between the masked Jonin and his students. That sword on Xion-san's back. Kakashi began, curious as to how the girl acquired the sentient blade. Ah yes, during a mission, the girls passed through Wave Country. The red-haired Uzumaki man responded. As I recall, Xion-san suddenly broke off from the group and went directly towards 2 graves. As I understand it, the sword chose her to be its new wielder. I see, it must be a great honor for her. Kakashi replied with an eye smile, though on the inside he was seething. Having lost the chance to claim such a blade. Damn it, I knew I should have requested some time off to claim the blade. Turning their attention back to the classroom, both Jonins watched as the number of teams slowly dwindled down as more and more were caught cheating to answer the questions written on the test. All of which were way above what any normal genin could hope to answer on their own. 1 hour later. An hour had passed before the written test was finally over, with the remaining teams that had stuck around for the final 10th question passing the first phase of the exam. Ibuki had given his speech about how not everything was as it seemed, and there would be times in their shinobi careers when they would have to face the dilemma of putting themselves in danger to complete the mission and save their comrades, or retreating to prevent injury to themselves. Welcome to Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death. Anko proudly exclaimed to the gathered genin. A malicious smirk on her face. The rules here are simple. The Snake Mistress continued. You have 5 days to reach the tower in the center of the training ground. Killing is allowed, which is why all of you will have to sign these waivers that are full of all that legal shit that Konoha is not responsible for your death. What if we don't sign? A nameless genin asked. Then you get disqualified and you and your team can run back home to mommy. The purple-haired woman bluntly replied. PFF'd, I'm not afraid. Came Naruto's reply, only to be met with a kunai grazing his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. Next thing the blonde knew, Anko was draped over his shoulder, giving his blood a lick before chuckling. You know, it's ones like you that die first. She started loud enough for all to hear, before lowering her voice so only Naruto could hear. Be careful in there. Letting the blonde genin go, Anko took her spot in the front of the group of genin once more to finish her instructions. Explaining that each team will be given either a heaven or earth scroll, and that in order to pass this phase of the exam, each team would have to have one of each. With the exception of the Barugaker team, since they had more members, would require 2 of each. Once everything was explained, and the teams got into position at their designated starting gates, Anko issued the signal for the second phase of the Chunin exams to start, prompting all the teams to rush into the forest. Almost immediately, a scream echoed from the trees, signifying the first death. Who the hell dies that fast? Anko asked herself in disbelief. Team 7 had wasted no time when the gates had opened, immediately dashing into the forest, trying to put as much distance between themselves and the other teams as possible that had also started at their gate. Which was much easier said than done, as a handful of the starting teams had aimed to get their scrolls early and actively hunted the other participants right out the gate. Fortunately, Naruto had been able to confuse their pursuers with multiple shadow clones, hinged as his teammates, giving his team time to regroup and plan for their trek through the forest. Now the members of Team 7 stood in a small clearing, various traps set up around them to warn them if any other team were to stumble upon their location. So what's the plan? Sakura inquired, looking between her two teammates. It would be best if we got the scroll we needed as soon as possible and head to the tower. Naruto stated. He felt uneasy being in the forest. He couldn't put his finger on it, but something felt off. As if they were being watched, and not by the various creatures that called the forest of death home. For once, I agree with the dove. Sasuke smirked. Sending a soft glare towards the Uchiha boy, Naruto was a little taken aback by the fact that Sasuke had actually agreed with him. If the young teen's actions in the academy were any indication, he figured Sasuke would have wanted to stay in the forest for a few days to test himself against the other teams. Glancing over at his pink-haired friend, Naruto could see she was a bit surprised as well. Then which one of us should carry the scroll? Naruto inquired, producing the heaven scroll from his pocket. He then received his second shock of the day. You keep it, Naruto. The Uchiha instructed as he turned away from the two and stared out into the forest. Your ability with shadow clones can help keep it away from enemy teams, do not lose it. Nodding silently, Naruto moved to put the scroll back in his pocket, though seeing as Sasuke wasn't looking at him, channeled chakra into one of the storage seals on the inside of his jumpsuit. While at the same time, producing a similar-looking scroll and placing it in his pocket. If they were lucky, they wouldn't lose their scroll. If not, well, the one to take the scroll was going to be in for a bad surprise. So, how are we going to get the Earth Scroll we need? The pink-haired Kunoichi questioned. Easy. Sasuke grinned as he looked back at the other two members of his team. We go directly to the tower and ambush one of the teams that already have theirs. Turning back around, the last Uchiha started to make his way in the direction of the tower that was located in the center of the forest, not looking to see if the rest of his team was following him or not. As both Sakura and Naruto were rooted firmly in their spots as they tried to process the recent events. Though both had silently agreed that it was a good plan to ambush a team at the tower that already had their scrolls. Though Naruto did muse, it would be awkward if the first team they encountered was his fiancé. So, does Sasuke seem off to you? Naruto inquired in a low voice as the two of them followed after their raven-haired teammate. Yeah, he actually agreed with you instead of arguing and then acknowledged your skill with the shadow clones. Sakura replied in a similar hushed tone. Well, if he is an imposter, I like this one better. The blonde chuckled, earning a small giggle from his friend. Come on, best not to let him get too far ahead of us. Nodding, Sakura took off after Naruto as they increased their speed to catch up with their teammate. Burugakure team, 3 hours later. The 5 girls bounded through the tree branches with effortless ease towards their destination, the center tower. However, their pace was casual as they desired to stay within the forest, in case Naruto required their help. While they had faith in his own skills, he made it very clear that he would be hiding them to avoid suspicion. Within the first hour of entering the forest, the girls had already acquired their required scrolls, as well as a few extras to help eliminate some of the competition. It was almost laughable at how woefully unprepared many of the teams were. Not just in terms of skill and ability as a shinobi, but in their lack of attention to their surroundings and overall, common sense. If anything, the girls did the teams a favor by eliminating them from the exams, as they clearly were not ready. Though Morgiana had desperately prayed to Cammy that they would cross paths with the Mutts team that had the audacity to all but demand that she forsake her vows to her beloved. Even going as far as to threaten to force her to submit to him. The mere thought still infuriated her. Oh, how she desperately wanted to smash him into the ground. Group up ahead. Xion stated, using her sensory abilities to identify the locations of various groups. 3 members. All right, position girls. Aqua instructed, prompting each of the girls to move into a defensive position to cover each other's openings. Often called the Kame no Kaisei, or the turtle formation. A handful of seconds later, the quintet entered a small clearing surrounded by dense trees to find a trip from Kumogakure. All 3 of which immediately got into a defensive stance as the 5 girls entered the clearing. Great. The dark-skinned male with white hair sighed, moving the that was in his mouth to the other side. Of all the teams we had to encounter, it had to be the one from Barugakure. The others watched on as the young man began to come up with outlandish and ridiculous scenarios that would play out if they were to fight, causing the girls from Barugakure to form a sweat drop at his antics, while his teammates could only shake their head in annoyance before the red-haired woman with dark skin and yellow eyes pummeled him in the head to shut him up. I didn't expect to see you here, Mabui-san. Aqua greeted the remaining female of Kumogakure with a smile, as the blue-haired young woman recognized the remaining woman. A young, dark-skinned woman with vibrant green eyes and straight, light gray hair pulled back into a bun, with 2 bangs that framed both sides of her smooth face, which only served to make her emerald eyes stand out even more. Her attire consisted of a dark gray low-cut outfit, which displayed her sizable cleavage, a tactic used to catch male opponents off guard, even some female ones as well, with mesh armor underneath. A pair of black bicycle shorts cover her lower region, accompanied by shiny haikunoichi boots. A kunai holster positioned on her left thigh, while her shuriken pouch was located on her right thigh. A pair of black hand guards, and a modified Kumogakure white flak jacket that covered her stomach only in a girdle-like fashion finished her attire. We only arrived this morning. The now identified Mabui replied, relaxing her guard a little, much to her teammates' surprise. And you? We arrived yesterday afternoon. The blue-haired Kunoichi stated, taking a similar relaxed posture, with the other 4 girls from Barugakure relaxing as well. Mabui, what are you doing? The red-haired Kunoichi demanded while she readied her katana for attack, wondering why her teammate was acting towards the girls. They're a potential enemy. Exactly, they could be luring us into a false sense of security so we will drop our guard, and then they will capture us, take our scroll and sell us as slaves to a foreign country. The white-haired teenage boy added, taking an offensive posture as well. Karui. Omoi. Stand down, now. Mabui demanded, glaring at her 2 teammates, prompting them to lower their weapons and look at her in confusion. Sorry about them, Aqua-san. It's okay. Aqua waved it off. It's actually refreshing to see a team ready for these exams. We've lost count of how many teams that were woefully unprepared for this. Speaking of which, what scroll do you have? At this, both Omoi and Karui tensed at the question. Their hands itching to grab their weapons once more. We have the Heaven Scroll. The gray-haired young woman replied without a worry. Nodding, Aqua turned to Kairi who had already begun digging through her pouch before producing an earth scroll and handing it to the blue-haired Kunoichi, who in return handed it to Mabui. Much to the shock of the other 2 Kumo genin. We have a few extra. Kairi smiled. As stated, we've lost count of how many teams were not prepared for this. Rory added with a giggle. Has there been any word yet? Mabui inquired the girls in a soft tone, causing Omoi to scowl slightly at the question. Something that did not go unnoticed. Yes. Aqua answered with a smile, causing Mabui to look up in surprise. We found him, now we just need to bring him home. He's here, isn't he? The gray-haired woman narrowed her eyes as she began to piece together the pieces. What are you talking about, Mabui? Karui asked with an expression of confusion. What's this about and who is this guy you are talking about? Naruto-kun. Kairi whispered. Naruto. Naruto, wait, isn't that the name of the brat that the Raikage forced you into that engagement thing with? The redhead appeared rather untactful, earning a few scowls from the Barugakure girls. I wasn't forced into the engagement. Mabui sighed. It is open-ended that I am allowed to walk away without any threat to the alliance of our villages. However, I feel it is only fair that I at least meet him and get a chance to know him before I make any choices. Which is very admirable, Mabui-san. Xion commented. Meanwhile, Omoi scowled at the implications as he walked away from the group of girls and posted himself against a tree just on the outskirts of the clearing. Clearly not wanting to hear what the girls were talking about. What's with him? Morgiana inquired as she noticed the white-haired teenager walk away. He has a crush on me, and is jealous that I have rejected him every time he has asked me out on a date. The gray-haired young woman replied with a slight tone of frustration. Anyways, did you meet him? What's he like? Yes, we did get to meet him. Aqua replied with a slight sigh, a faraway look in her eyes. After 7 long years, it felt great to be held by him again. Wait, what happened? Karui blinked, as she was not aware of the entire situation revolving around this Naruto Go. The only thing she had been informed of was the arranged engagement between the boy and her friend and teammate. 7 years ago I was supposed to meet my fiancé for the arranged marriage. It was supposed to be a surprise for him, as his mother had arranged for our meeting to be on his birthday. Mabui recounted with a slight frown. However, before we could meet, he was kidnapped from his own village. What? Why? Karui exclaimed. At this, all of the girls exchanged a look before Aqua let out a sigh. Because Naruto-kun is a Jinchuriki. The brunette beauty stated bluntly, earning a gasp of realization from the red-haired Kumo girl. And you think Konoha took him? Don't think, we know. Morgiana stated, clenching her fist in anger. He's being monitored, no doubt by Anbu. Aqua continued to explain the situation surrounding the blonde-haired boy. It was by pure luck that I managed to run into him last night, and I am sure if we didn't play that communication game when we were younger, we wouldn't have been able to talk at all. Communication game. Mabui tilted her head in confusion. Yes. Aqua giggled. When we were younger, we created a form of rhythmic communication to give each other answers to a test or just talk during class without the teacher suspecting anything. But why didn't he try to run away or get a message out? Karui asked, crossing her arms over her chest as she tried to wrap her head around what she was hearing. Because he had a memory seal and a loyalty seal placed upon him, which only recently broke. Xion answered, earning a scowl from both of the Kumo girls. So he wasn't even aware he had been kidnapped until about 2 weeks ago. So there's no chance to meet him right now? The gray-haired Kunoichi inquired. Due to them knowing about our history with Naruto-kun, we can't afford to be openly friendly with him. Aqua lamented with a sigh. But you are an unknown, so you may get a chance to talk with him without raising too much suspicion, just don't be too quick to judge. He has to put on an act until we can get him out of the village. I hope Kushina-sama nails the Hokage's balls to the wall for the shit he's pulled. Rory hissed in anger, earning a nod of agreement from the other Beru girls. Wait, are you talking about the Kushina? As in Kushina of the Crimson Blade? The red-haired Kumo girl asked, wide-eyed. Why the hell hasn't she already smashed down the gates and razed the village? Because Kushina-sama has something far more devious planned. Xion gave a sadistic grin. We don't know what it is, but willing to bet, it will cause far more lasting marks than property damage. Well, we better. Suddenly a wave of coldness washed over all of the Beru girls, prompting them all to look in the same direction just to the east of them. each of their eyes widening in terror as they realized what the feeling was. Naruto-kun. They all mentally screamed. We gotta go, now. Aqua ordered, earning a concerned look from Mabui due to the girl's sudden change of demeanor. What's going on? The Kumo girl asked as she watched the girls begin to bond off. Naruto-kun is in trouble, was the quick answer she was given before the group of girls from Barugakure disappeared into the trees at full speed. Good. Maybe if something happens to the brat, Mabui-chan will finally notice me. Omoi thought darkly as he kicked up off the tree he was leaning against to rejoin his two teammates. Team 7. Sasuke was writhing in pain on the ground, desperately grasping his neck where the strange man had bitten him, screaming out in agony before falling unconscious. Sakura on the other hand sported numerous minor injuries and was battered and bruised and panting heavily, leaning against a tree for support as she could only helplessly look on as the monster that had attacked them stalked slowly towards her blonde teammate and friend. She struggled to get up to help, but only succeeded in stumbling over her own feet and falling face first into the dirt. Who are you, bastard? Naruto questioned aggressively as he took a defensive stance with a kunai in hand, readying himself for anything this creepy-looking man would throw at him. Isn't this a surprise? The lanky man chuckled with a sinister smile as he stalked closer to Naruto. The missing heir of the Uzumaki royal family, my, what a scandal my former sensei has embroiled himself in. Hearing this, both Sakura and Naruto's eyes widened, each for different reasons. For Sakura, it was in shock upon learning that Naruto was thought to be some missing heir to a royal family. Naruto, though, was in fear as he realized just who it was that stood before them. From there, the blonde Jinchuriki was able to connect the dots as to what the snake Sannin had done to the fallen Uchiha. Then there was the fact that Orochimaru knew exactly who he was, which caused the blonde boy to cast a cautious glance at his pink-haired teammate, knowing full well that she had heard what the snake bastard had said. Guess she is going to have some questions if we survive this. Naruto mused. We'll get through this, kid. Kurama reassured his host. If nothing else, I can take control and we can brush it off as my chakra seeping out due to dire stress. Would prefer not to. The blonde mentally sighed as he imagined various scenarios that would cause. We're lucky they didn't tamper with the seal due to the events in Wave. Guarantee that if we do that here, the old bastard will tighten the seals. Fair point, Kit. The fox agreed with a light scowl. Sure, he would be able to ward off the memory seal and loyalty seal if it was to be reapplied in other such seals, but if the bastards tampered with his actual seal, it could spell all sorts of trouble for the both of them. As for young Sasuke-kun, I merely gave him something to remember me by. Orochimaru chuckled, turning his attention fully back towards the blonde before him, causing Naruto to flinch under the man's cold glare. You, however, could become a problem to my plans. At this, Naruto readied his kunai, trying to shake off his fear as much as he could. He knew he stood no chance against the snake Sannin as he was. Especially due to how this cesspool of a village had sabotaged his growth. Especially with that beast in your gut. Orochimaru stated. Without warning, the snake's tongue shot out of his mouth towards Naruto, completely catching the young blonde off guard as the tongue wrapped around his arms and chest, while the tip of the tongue moved to lift up the lower part of his jumpsuit, exposing the seal on his belly. Shit. Both Naruto and Kurama thought at the same time, immediately knowing what the snake bastard was planning. Sure enough, Orochimaru's fingers on his right hand lit up with a blue fiery-like aura at the tips, aiming straight for the seal. Out of desperation, Naruto used both hands to block it from making contact, fighting against the snake-like tongue that was wrapped around him. Just barely keeping the Sannin from making contact with his gut. A girl shouted from the side of the two. The next thing either of them knew, Orochimaru was sent smashing into a tree courtesy of the blunt end of Rory's massive halberd, as the black-haired beauty landed next to Naruto. Casting a concerned look to her fiancé, receiving a subtle nod from the blonde. Giving a subtle nod of her own, Rory then turned her attention to the tree she had sent the snake bastard flying into, gripping her weapon. As she did so, Xion landed next to her with her massive sword at the ready. As the two raven-haired girls kept watch for the snake Sannin, the rest of the girls entered the battlefield, though it wasn't missed by Sakura that as each of the girls entered the small clearing, their eyes immediately locked onto Naruto, and she had a feeling it wasn't because of his orange jumpsuit. "We will meet again, Naruto-san." The girl with blue hairs commented as she approached the blonde as he slowly stood up, her blue eyes scanning all over his body for signs of any serious injuries. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, thank you Aqua-san," he replied, wanting to alleviate any concern his fiancés had. Knowing that his lover's seal had to have notified them that he was in danger. "How does she know your name, Naruto?" Sakura inquired from her position sitting on the forest floor, prompting the blue-haired girl to turn around and see the state the pink-haired girl was in. "Kairi, help her," Aqua instructed before turning her attention back to Sakura as the red-haired Baru Kunoichi set to work checking over the pinket's injuries before utilizing her Iryo ninjutsu to heal her wounds, much to the amazement of Sakura. "We met last night at Ikiruka's when I went to get some ramen for my team, even paid for my order." Such a gentleman. With her task of healing Sakura done, the redhead then moved over to Naruto, earning a small smile from him as he nodded for her to go ahead and heal him. Despite the fact that Kurama could easily take care of his wounds, he knew it would mean the world to his red-haired fiancé if she could help him. Across from them, Sakura watched as her blonde teammate and friend seemed perfectly relaxed around these strange girls. While she was well aware that Barugakure were allies with Konoha, they were still participating in an exam, making everyone, even teams from their own village, a potential enemy. "What happened to him?" Morgiana asked, gesturing towards the unconscious Sasuke. "Son of a bitch pedophile bit his neck and put a hickey on him of some kind." Naruto replied, looking Aqua directly in the eye, making sure she understood exactly what he was implying. Nodding, the blue-haired beauty moved over to the fallen Uchiha, checking the boy's neck to identify the mark. Seeing it, a scowl settled in upon her face. Sure enough, just as she suspected, Orochimaru had marked the Uchiha with his cursed mark. Quickly, she reached into her pouch and pulled out a brush and some fuinjutsu ink. "What's she going to do to Sasuke?" Sakura asked, standing up. "The one that attacked you wasn't a genin, as I am sure you know by now." Xion commented as she approached the group. "His name is Orochimaru, the traitor Sannin over your village. As for what Aqua-chan is doing, she is applying a suppression seal to keep the curse seal restrained until it can be removed safely. That's what the bastard did when he bit Sasuke, Sakura-chan." Naruto added as he joined the girls, squatting down next to Sakura before looking up at the other black-haired beauty who was now approaching the group. "Slimy bastard ran away." Rory grunted as she leaned against her weapon with a pout. "And Sasha here was so eager to taste his blood. So, you're the team from Barugakure?" Sakura inquired, attempting to strike up some small talk with the blue-haired girl identified as Aqua and continued to work. "You are correct," Xion replied. "Name's Xion, Barugakure's Queen of Blades. I am Morgiana, Barugakure's Feral Fist Master." The pink-haired Baru Kunoichi introduced herself, prompting Sakura to take a double glance, since only her father shared her hair color, much to the man's embarrassment. "Rory, the Reaper." The girl with long black hair started with a smirk as she gauged the pinket's reaction to her nickname. She was not disappointed as Sakura's expression was one mix of shock, and a trace amount of fear. "I'm Kairi." The redhead that healed them earlier introduced herself. My goal is to surpass Tsunade-sama as the elemental nation's best medical kunoichi. And the snow cone over there is Aqua, Verugaker's next Fuinjutsu prodigy. The girl named Morgiana stated as she gestured towards the blue-haired kunoichi that was finishing up with the seal on Sasuke. Pleased to meet you all. Sakura bowed her head. My name is Sakura Haruno. As for my dreams, well, they have shifted recently. The four girls from Verugaker each smirked and shared a knowing look between one another before they all turned their attention to their blonde lover, who only shrugged his shoulders with an expression of confusion written on his face. He should be fine, but he will be out of action for up to 12 hours. Aqua informed the two conscious members of Team 7. Thank you, Aqua-san, Naruto said as he stood up once more to meet the blue-haired kunoichi. It is no problem, we are all friends after all. She smiled. What scroll do you need? Kairi inquired. We have the heaven scroll, so we need an earth. The blonde Jinchuriki answered. Upon hearing the answer, Kairi quickly rummaged through her pouch and produced an earth scroll, handing it to Naruto, much to the shock of Sakura to see the girl just hand over one of the scrolls as if it was nothing. Thank you, Kairi-san. Naruto smiled, causing the poor redhead to blush, prompting her to clench her fists tightly to restrain herself from tackling him in a hug and claiming his lips. We can stick around, if you would like, Naruto-san. Aqua offered. We should be good now, thank you. The blonde replied with a smile. We're going to rest and set off first thing in the morning for the tower. Besides, Kairi-chan is already struggling to keep her emotions reined in, as am I. The blonde mentally sighed. After the previous night, he desperately wanted to take each of his girls into his arms once more. Very well, Naruto-san. The blue-haired kunoichi replied, a little disheartened at his refusal, but she understood his reasoning. She could already see the frustration washing over Kairi's face, and no doubt the other girls were feeling the same way. We shall see you at the tower then. With one final nod, the Verugaker kunoichi departed towards the massive tower visible from their location, leaving Sakura and Naruto alone with an unconscious Sasuke. Silence fell over the two conscious team members as Sakura stayed in her sitting position near the tree, trying to wrap her head around what had just transpired in the span of 20 minutes. First they were attacked by Orochimaru, Konoha's most well-known traitor, for the sole purpose of placing some sort of mark on Sasuke for reasons she didn't quite understand yet, though she knew no good could come from it. Then there was the fact that the snake Sannin had called Naruto the missing heir to the Uzumaki royal family, and even implied that the Hokage was involved somehow. Lastly, there was the Verugaker team. The Pinkett couldn't put her finger on it, but it felt as if Naruto had a connection with those girls, far deeper than what he had let on. The sense of familiarity that seemed to emanate from each of them when they acknowledged each other. Especially the red-haired one, Kairi. Sakura noted how the aspiring medic blushed when she was close to Naruto while she was healing him. Not to mention, she could see the girl's muscles tensing, as if trying to restrain herself from doing something more physical with the blonde boy, causing a sense of jealousy to rise up within the Pinkett. Sakura didn't know the exact reason why, but she was positive that the five girls had come to help Naruto, and that she and Sasuke had only benefited due to being on the same team as the blonde. I say when we get to the tower, we should corner him about it. Inner commented. Why not now? Sakura mentally questioned. I mean, Sasuke is unconscious and we're alone. Because we're in the middle of the forest of death. Her inner self pointed out. We may be alone, but we are not safe. Good point. The Pinkett conceded, casting another glance at Naruto, who was beginning to clear an area near the massive roots of one of the trees. Having made her choice to corner the blonde in the tower, Sakura got up from her spot and set out to help Naruto set up the camp. While she furnished a makeshift shelter of sticks, leaves and mud, the blonde Jinchuriki set off to make various traps around the campsite as well as secure some food and water from the bountiful resources the forest offered, before heading back to camp. "We're watching it," Kurama growled, sensing three figures lingering just on the outskirts of the trap line he had set up. "I know, they've finally managed to take out all of my clone teams that were sent out as decoys. Pretty sure our scrap with the pedophile attracted them to our location." Naruto replied with a small sigh. "Took them long enough, even if your clones weren't fighting back." The fox commented. "So what's your plan, Kit? I've got a surprise in store for them, but I am going to need your help." The blonde chuckled darkly. Later that night, screams echoed through the trees as various genin teams fell to the nightly horrors the properly named Forest of Death concealed. For his part, Naruto did not envy those who were unprepared for this place. Having sought refuge in this forest numerous times over the past 7 years away from the angry mobs that would gather each year on his birthday, he knew full well the horrors this forest held. Which was part of the reason he had insisted he would take the night watch to watch over his team and allow them to sleep through the night. As much as she had grown over the past few weeks, he knew Sakura wasn't ready for this place at night time. As he sat there, he could feel the 3 chakra signatures maneuvering through the traps he had set up. Smirking to himself, he waited for them to get closer to the camp before he stood up and faced the 3 unwanted visitors. This was the other reason Naruto had insisted he take a watch. "You're not genin," he blatantly stated, eyeing the 3 individuals. "What are you doing here?" "Kyuubi Jinchuriki." One of them started stiffly, prompting Naruto to frown slightly. "Emotionless, skills higher than that of your typical genin and full knowledge of my status," Naruto surmised. "This has the scent of old bastards all over it. You two carry out the mission, make sure she doesn't survive." The one in front of Naruto ordered, causing him to scowl further. But leave Uchiha-sama unspoiled. At this, Naruto couldn't help but let out a low laugh, catching the 3 root members' attention. Looking up, he decided to let them in on his own personal joke. "Fortunately, my team isn't here," he said. As soon as he spoke, the campsite began to dissolve into nothing, revealing that it had been a genjutsu all along, much to the horror of the 3 nameless root members, since their mission was now in jeopardy. "Let me guess, you were ordered by that old bastard to kill Sakura-chan in order to break my mind and force me to use the Kyuubi's power." Naruto gave a sadistic knowing grin. "How about we just skip to the part where I just use the fox's power instead, shall we?" Upon saying that, Naruto's eyes flashed red, as red and yellow chakra began to engulf his body. A single chakra tail swaying in a threatening manner behind him. A few seconds later, screams erupted through the trees, shattering the still of the night. So friends, this was episode 2 of this exciting multiverse adventure. If you enjoyed it and want episode 3 soon, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also comment down your thoughts. What secret do you think Naruto's missing memories are hiding, and who erased them in the first place? I'll see you in the next episode.